Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this Game 1 World Series MLB Showdown slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Before we get into it, I have multiple Patreon packages over there on Patreon, and I will be including a $7 World Series package where you get access to my power rankings for all these Showdown slates on FanDuel and DraftKings. For $7, as well as access to my Discord chat where you can ask me questions all the way up until the game about game theory, what I'm thinking after the lineups come out, and kind of where my head's at. So if interested, go ahead and check that out. You can follow me over on Twitter at KJK DFS. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down this Game 1 World Series Showdown slate. So the very first thing to mention that's important to go over real quick, I have a little diagram pulled up here, is that this World Series matchup, there will be no home field advantage because of COVID, and the games will be played at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas, the brand new Texas Rangers Stadium. So I got a little diagram pulled up here to show you the field dimensions real quick before we start talking about the game, so we can get an idea if there's any good spots for lefties or righties type of deal on the short porches. And you can see on the left side here, this is the old Globe Life Park, and then the Globe Life Field, the new stadium on the right side here. You can see that they're pretty similar dimensions. I mean, a little shorter to right center and left center in the new stadium, but out to center we have a 410 versus a 400 in the old stadium, so 410 feet versus 400. So I mean, that's one thing to take into account. But overall, I mean, it's a pretty good hitter stadium, and it's not like there's one side of the field that's way shorter than the other. You know, right field's 326, left field's 329, and then 374 and 372 to left center and right center. So just wanted to bring that up real quick because I think that's important. Overall, pretty even. I don't really think we need to be worrying about, targeting a bunch of lefties versus righties because of one porch being way shorter than the other. So definitely a good hitting environment. And with that being said, let's look at the starting pitching matchup. So in Game 1, we have Clayton Kershaw taking on Tyler Glasnow. And you can see that Tyler Glasnow definitely completely outshines Clayton Kershaw in the strikeout category. He has a 38.2% K rate this year and a 57.1 innings pitched sample size compared to Clayton Kershaw's 28.1. But the ground ball, the fly ball, the walk, the hard hit rate, Kershaw has a big advantage on him. You know, with Glasnow having a 38.7% ground ball compared to Kershaw's 53. The fly ball is worse, the walk rate's worse, the hard hit rate's worse. And then against righties, Kershaw definitely outshines him once again. But Glasnow outshines him in a major way in the strikeout category, 37.9%. And we do get points for strikeouts in fantasy sports, so we have to factor this in. And then a 38.6% K rate to lefties for Glasnow and a 24.5% K rate to lefties for Kershaw. And then the hard contact and the slugging has been a lot worse for Kershaw versus lefties, which I do think is something that's going to be a little bit sneaky here because we are playing a showdown slate where we're going to have to, get sneaky a little bit in our plays because I don't know about you guys, but with these big prize pools with 100K to first, I want to be the only one in first place. I'm not trying to share that top prize with other people. So on FanDuel, you can see they have the Game 1 special with 100K to first. This is the payout structure there. 100K up top, we have 35,750 entries in that one. And then on DraftKings over here, we have another 100K to first with a $20 entry with 29,411 people. So this is when game theory becomes very important. And as I go along here, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to do my overall breakdown of the starting pitching real quick as we just went over a little bit. Talk about the bullpens, talk about some hitters that we want to target in these lineups. And then we'll go ahead and start doing some lineup building on FanDuel first and then DraftKings next. So quick little brief look at the team hitting data for each of the teams. I think it goes without saying they're in the World Series. They're both very, very good teams. Looking at the Dodgers numbers, you can see they have a 20.8% K rate. It's very impressive. A 219 WOBA, 347 ISO, 476 slugging, fly ball, the hard ball is really, or hard hit rate's really good. Against righties, which they're taking on in Game 1 in Glasnow, They have a 505 slugging, which is very impressive. Absolutely slug. And then against lefties, they're not quite as effective. That's when they have to go into some of their pinch hitting options. But obviously, they're not taking on a lefty right away. Just breaking down their overall hitting statistics. And then against the Rays numbers, you can see they have a 26% K rate. Not quite as impressive across the board. Against righties, pretty mediocre, and then against lefties, pretty mediocre. I mean, this is comparing them against the entire league. But one thing I do want to mention is if you look at the K rate against lefties, which they're taking on a Kershaw, they have a 27.2% K rate, which when I go ahead and sort my team hitting data sheet by strikeout rate against lefties, you can see in the entire league, they actually come in second to worst against left-handed pitching. So I do think that this is something interesting to mention because we're looking for every single advantage that we can get on these showdown slates, and it looks like Kershaw is going to get a little bit of a bump being a left-handed pitcher taking on these Tampa Rays. So wanted to point that out real quick. And when looking at the Vegas lines, the Dodgers are favored. They have a 182 line in their favor, a 4.29 applied run total, and then the Rays have a 3.21. So the Dodgers are expected to win this game according to Vegas. So these are the things you have to factor in because we do get points for the win in Kershaw, which we don't have pitching on FanDuel, but we do have pitching on DraftKings. So we'll get into that when we start building some lineups here. But just something to note there. And then lastly, the bullpen data. I've gone ahead and pulled the Dodgers and Braves statistics from this chart that I have and put them aside because this is comparing their bullpens to everyone in the league and it's color-coded. So if we go over to just these two teams, you can see just green across the board. Very, very good bullpens. I mean, I think it goes without saying. I think it's kind of common knowledge at this point. They're in the World Series. They got it all. But, we have to look at every advantage we can get. And I will say when it comes to bullpens, I don't really think we have a particular team that we could target their bullpen with because they're both very good across the board in the walk rate, the home run per 9, the BABIP, the ground ball, the home run per fly ball, exit velocity, ERA, xFIP, hard hit rate, barrels. I mean, their bullpen doesn't have any weaknesses, both sides. The only thing that is what you could consider a weakness is their K per 9, but that's not even bad at all. So yeah, these are all things that I'll be factoring in when conducting my Showdown Power Rankings for you guys. So I'll have all my notes and my rankings on FanDuel and DraftKings and figuring out, more importantly, some game theory stuff. So with that being said, let's just start building some lineups. Very first, we're going to go over to FanDuel. 8:09 start time, and you can see the format. They have an MVP slot with the 2-time points, star with a 1.5, and then 3 utility players. So it's going to come down to, mathematically speaking, I think it's kind of clear, but I want to make sure you guys know. Obviously you want the highest scoring player in your 2.5 time points slot, and you want the second highest scorer in your 1.5 times spot. That would be the optimal conclusion we can make here. And then you want the 3 utility players. Now, there is a salary cap, so you could say, being a little bit contrarian, a guy like Corey Seager, he's 9.5K, so maybe we don't want to put him in our 2-time spot strictly because maybe we think he's like, the 3rd highest scorer on the slate. We put him in one of our utility slots, and then we can get sneaky with playing a cheaper player in our MVP slot, like I don't know. I think playing a catcher might be a little bit sneaky. Will Smith does hit in the middle of the order, so let's say we want to go ahead and play Will Smith in our MVP slot. Not a lot of people are going to want to play the catcher there. And then in our 1.5 times, we get a little sneaky with Willy Adames, who probably won't be the most popular. That leaves us with $7,000 in salary cap. Then we can throw in two guys in the 7K range. So, a guy like Justin Turner, who's at the top of the lineup, and a guy like Austin Meadows, who's at the top of the lineup. So that's just one lineup I wanted to build, just simply going over game strategy. Everyone's going to want to put in the star players in their MVP slot, like a Mookie Betts or a Randy Arozarena or a Cody Bellinger or something. So maybe throwing in Will Smith in your MVP slot, throwing a guy like Willie Adames. Let's say both of these guys hit home runs, and then Corey Seager comes through with an RBI double. Justin Turner comes through with like 3 singles, and Austin Meadows comes through with 2 doubles type of deal. You have the 2 guys that hit home runs in the game in your MVP slot and your 1.5 slot, and then you have the star players not in that slot, but still getting you the contribution of their hits, versus other people having them in their MVP and star slot, and not getting the benefits of those 2 guys at the bottom, where they're hitting those home runs in the 2 times and the 1.5 points. So I think you get the strategy. These are the things that we're going to have to think about, because you're playing in a tournament with 35,750 people. I hate to tell you, but you're probably not going to win just playing the basic plays. I mean, you might. It might be a game script. We have 7 games to try to win that $100,000. I'm hoping that they're going to have these slates every day. So if you want to just go ahead and play the top players and just try to make a little bit of money here and there, great. But you're probably not going to set yourself apart from the field and come in first. So just something I wanted to go over. Another thing that might be interesting. Now this is getting very, very sneaky. But the Tampa Bay Rays, you can see their lineup. They're projected to roll out against Kershaw. They have some righties that they're going to want to throw in to combat Kershaw's left-handed arm. But we all know that there's some other guys, such as a G-Man Choi, that usually hits in the middle of this order instead of Hunter Renfroe, that isn't starting. Now, I'm not going to say build all of your lineups like this, but I do think it would be interesting maybe playing G-Man Choi, who isn't starting, as a sneaky play to kind of differentiate yourself in the field, because when these lineups come out, we're going to have those green little check marks next to each guy in the starting lineup, those little check boxes, and a guy like G-Man Choi, who's a very good hitter but just won't get the start because the lefty, could come into the game, take on a reliever, hit a home run, and then you're probably going to get him very, very low owned, and that could separate you from the field and maybe get you up to that top spot in tournaments. So something to think about. With that being said, though, I really want to dig into pitch data, because I think that's how I'm going to make my decisions on who to start. And when you're looking at Kershaw, he throws on average a 90.47 mile an hour fastball about 48 to 41% of the time, and then he throws a slider the other 40% of the time. So he's very reliant on fastball slider. So I want to look at these Tampa Bay Rays bats and how they fare against the fastball and the slider, and you can see the 1 through. We don't really have much data on Randy Arozarena right now, just because he hasn't been around for too long. However, I think we all know what he's capable of based on what he's been doing in the playoffs. He's been absolutely raking, so definitely have interest in him. But Mike Brousseau has a 632 ISO against the fastball. Hunter Renfroe at 293. Yandy Diaz, it's a 412. Brandon Lau, a 394. He's been really struggling, so a little bit of a disclaimer on him. A lot of pitchers throwing him the high fastball. I think it's become common knowledge he's struggling against that pitch, and they just keep firing it in there at his letters. So I'd be interested to see how they approach him. And then when we move over to sliders, against left-handed pitching, Mike Brousseau, once again, pretty good, 273. Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, and then Manuel Margot actually excels pretty good against it in the power category. So I will say right off the bat, Mike Brousseau definitely stands out at the top of this order as a guy that I'll have interest in. However, I was just talking about, the Rays and who they're going to bring in after the lefty comes out, and Brosseau's definitely going to get pinch hit for by Austin Meadows would be my guess. So, or replace defensively, or at some point Austin Meadows will probably come in, or they'll put a defensive switch in there. So while I do have interest in him, just keep that in mind. He probably will get replaced at some point. But maybe that'll lower his ownership. I doubt it because it's a showdown slate, and he's probably going to get 1 or 2 at-bats against Kershaw unless Kershaw just absolutely gets blown up, which in that case I'm sure he'll be part of the damage. So definitely got to have interest in based on the pitch data. My top options are definitely the guys at the top of the order based on pitch data. Mike Brosseau, Randy Arozarena, Hunter Renfroe, Yandy Diaz. That 1 through 4, and then Mike Zunino at the bottom of the order as a catcher. Number 1, he hits 9th. Number 2, he's a catcher. So I think you can get him really low owned, and we're talking about game strategy, and we're talking about taking down these big tournaments. I wouldn't mind going ahead and throwing in Mike Zunino in my MVP slot. He's cheap. Let's see, where is Zunino? He's all the way down here. He's only 4.5K on FanDuel. You can throw him in your MVP slot or even your star slot if you don't think MVP is the way to go. And he's only 4.5, and that includes Mike Brosseau as well. So the 2 guys at the top of this order are very cheap. You could throw them in your top 2 slots and then pretty much throw in anyone you want at the top. You could throw in Corey Seager, Mookie Betts, Randy Arozarena, Cody Bellinger. All those guys are going to fit in. And then you can throw in a Brandon Lau, Max Muncy. So, yeah, I kind of like that. If you want to throw in those cheap guys at the top and then throw in some star players, hope those cheap guys are the ones that go deep, and then you can fill out the rest of your lineup with those star players. It's just getting contrarian. The very best way to, it's baseball, so I think we can go ahead and look at pitch data. We can go ahead and look at statistics throughout the postseason. We can look at how guys have fared overall in the regular season and feel pretty confident. And ownership, I'm really excited about because I just feel like everyone's going to throw in the star players. Everyone's going to throw in Arozarena. Everyone's going to throw in Mookie Betts. Everyone's going to throw in Corey Seager, Justin Turner. So we could just throw in a guy like Austin Barnes, hope these starting pitchers go out and do their job, which they're supposed to, and then we have really good bullpens, as I had mentioned earlier in the video. These bullpens are both tremendous, and then just hope that the one mistake that's made is to a guy at the bottom of the order that's low owned, like a Mike Zunino or an Austin Barnes in the catcher spot, and we have that guy in our captain spot, and we have some good players in the middle order or the top of the order, and it pays out well. So that's what I'm looking to do. I think on these short game slates, I'm not trying to play a Mookie Betts who's going to be, I don't even know how owned, 50% owned probably. Personally, if you think playing a guy at the bottom of the lineup is too cute and you want to just throw in a blend of guys at the top and maybe try to play them based on their salary on either site and keep some salary on the board, I understand that too. But just giving you my approach to these showdown slates, I'm not trying to play the star players. I'm not trying to share the $100,000 with 2,000 other people. I know I'm being dramatic, but well, maybe not. There's 35,750 people in the contest, so if the top plays are Mookie Betts and Randy Arozarena, and they're in your MVP and star, and you don't do anything different in your utility slots, I'm sorry, but you're probably going to be sharing that with someone. Someone else is probably going to have your lineup. I hate to tell you, there's a lot of people in these contests, so these are things that we have to think about. So breaking down Tyler Glasnow's pitch repertoire and how these Dodgers fare. He just throws gas. He has a fastball curveball combination. He throws on average 96.88 exit velo velocity. So when looking at how the Dodgers fare at fastballs, 96 plus, we're not dealing with a ton of really great ISOs, honestly, at the top of this order. Justin Turner, Corey Seager, Mookie Betts, all in the 100 range. Max Muncy is the guy that stands out a ton. Max Muncy with a 567 ISO against fastballs 96 miles an hour faster is very, very impressive. Will Smith with a 267. That's only with a 9 batted ball events sample size, however, so I'll throw that out there. Cody Bellinger with a 250, and then Jock Peterson with a 464. So I can tell you right off the bat, Jock, Will Smith, and Max Muncy are standing out. Specifically, Max Muncy and Jock, I think. Now, I will say that Tyler Glasnow has a very high strikeout rate, and these are guys that swing for the fences and strike out a ton, so that's what we're dealing with. But when we're talking specifically on FanDuel, that doesn't matter anyways because we don't have pitching. So who cares? However, DraftKings, which is where we're going to transfer over to now, is a different setup because we do have pitching options available. We can play pitching, and we have the one captain spot with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 utility spots. So this is a little bit of a different lineup build because if a pitcher goes out there and dominates, I'm guessing that you're definitely going to want to have him in your captain spot because your captain spot is 1.5 times fantasy points. And they do get the salary boost. You know, if you look at the utility spot, Kershaw is 11.4, and then when you click over to the captain spot, if you're looking to insert him there, he's 17.1. So you pay up for your captain spot. But with that being said, if we go ahead and let's just say Kershaw is our favorite option on the slate, which myself, I'm not willing to go ahead and say that because, quite frankly, Tyler Glasnow's K rate is much higher. So I would probably lean Glasnow if I was pitching someone. However, we had gone over my team hitting data, and we had talked about how these Rays do have a big increase in strikeout rate when they're taking on a left-handed pitching. So overall, pretty impressive. But when we go over to left-handed pitching, it does bump up to second worst in the league behind the Braves, actually, a 27.2% clip. So I just want to remind you guys of that real quick. So that is the appeal to starting Kershaw, and a good reason. But when I'm sorting my sheet by K right here and just looking real quick, I don't even need to sort it. We got two guys. But Tyler Glasnow was a 38.2% K rate compared to Kershaw's 28.1%. So, I mean, that's a 10% difference in strikeout rate. That's very relevant. So, yeah, that's just what I want to point out. But anyways, Kershaw's the most expensive, so that's why I wanted to insert him into the captain spot and see what we're working with here. He's 17.1, so if we insert Kershaw into that captain spot, we're dealing with a lot of these cheaper guys. So we have guys like Austin Barnes, Jock Peterson, Yandy Diaz, Manuel Margot. We'd have to fill in a couple of those guys. Then once we do that, we do have salary available. So we could entertain the idea of playing both starting pitchers, which I think most likely will be popular. It's just because when we're looking at the Vegas lines, we have, both teams are only applied a 3 and a 4 run total, and it's game one. They're going to want to get some innings pitched out of these starters. They've been both using their bullpens a ton with this COVID postseason. There's no days off, and it's just been constant stress on their bullpen arms. So I'm sure both of these teams are going to want to get as many innings out of these starters as they can. So it's important to think about that. But, I mean, realistically, I would say we have to pick a side of the fence to be on. You're going to want to game script what happens. So you're going to want to either game script that Tyler Glasnow gets blown up early and play a bunch of Dodgers bats and then, combat that with Kershaw or include Kershaw in your lineup to kind of get the full effect of that happening. Or you're going to want to say both starters go out there and do a great job, put them both in your lineup, pick the guy who has the most strikeout upside or the guy that you think will last the longest in the game in your captain spot so you can get the maximum fantasy points out of him. And then go from there. The only thing I would say is I do think that Kershaw is going to have a lot longer of a leash because these Rays do tend to go to their bullpen early. But then again, I think Glasnow will have a longer of a leash because they want to rest their bullpen arms. So a long leash for a Rays pitcher, I should say. So, I mean, we've looked at pitch data. We've looked at salaries. I'm just going to go ahead before we end this video and make a lineup I like on FanDuel and then make a lineup I like on DraftKings. So, DraftKings, I do want to spend a little more time on just because we haven't got a chance to look at the salary in the lineup construction. So, I mean, I apologize for that, but I think you get the overall concept. We have one captain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 utility spots. So it's just a different layout. If I'm making a lineup, I'm thinking that the two pitchers are going to go pretty deep in this ball game. I'm thinking that when looking at my team hitting data sheet, we have a clear strikeout advantage in these Tampa Bay Rays, specifically against lefties. And then overall, a 26% carry compared to the Dodgers, who have a 20.8% carry. So the Dodgers just don't strike out a ton, but Glasnow's 38% K rate can fix that. So it's tough because I'm telling you all these different things. I'm personally going to go with Glasnow in the captain spot because he's only 15.9 compared to Glasnow 17.1. So I'm inserting Glasnow there. I'm putting Kershaw in as a double upside option to run it back with because I'm going to get the most upside out of both of these pitchers. If there's no home runs hit, the base hits are limited. And then I'm going to go ahead and throw in, a cheaper bat in Mike Brosseau at the top of this order to get them salary relief. I had mentioned I do like Yandy Diaz as well and how he breaks down against Kershaw's stuff. I'll throw him in. That leaves me with 5.9. I like Jock Peterson's ISO against those 96 or faster mile-an-hour fastballs taken on Glasnow. I'm going to throw him in. And then lastly, I talked about playing a catcher to get some low ownership, throwing in Mike Zunino, and there's my lineup. I think that matches up with everything we've gone over in the video. We have upside in Glasnow. We have Kershaw on the run it back. So both of them are going to go out and throw some innings, dominate most of the game. Brosseau and Diaz are going to be the guys that get the Kershaw. Jock Peterson's going to be the guy that hits the solo shot or the 3-run bomb off Glasnow. And then Mike Zunino is going to be the catcher that does some production and is low owned and allows me to get different in my lineup. So there's a lineup build for you over there on DraftKings. Different approach I would take is not playing the pitching. So the pitching is going to get blown up early. We're going to have a little bit of different approach. Which one's going to get blown up? That's when things get interesting. So, example, let's say we're saying Glasnow gets pulled from the game early. We want Kershaw to be our captain. Kershaw's going to go deep in the game. Who's going to blow up Glasnow? Well, we went over who profiles well against him, and Max Muncy was definitely the number one I liked. I like Max Muncy. Throw him in there. Will Smith looked good in middle of the order. Throw him in there to complete a little bit of a stack in Muncy Smith. Bellinger looked good, and then I like Jock Peterson. So let's throw in those guys. We're going to have a full-on stack because we think he's going to get blown up. Throwing Peterson. Now we only have 2-1, so we can't play this lineup. So who are we going to eliminate? Me, in my head, I'm going to go ahead and take Bellinger out at 9.2. Bellinger's got name value. His ownership's going to be higher than a Will Smith, I think, because more people know Cody Bellinger, so I'm going to remove him. We have 5.6. Where do we want to go with that? Well, we have Yandy Diaz, who we like for the Rays, so we'll throw him as a one-off against Kershaw. And then we have Mike Brosseau, who we like against the Rays, so we'll toss him in. And we have our lineup. So we have two guys against the starting pitcher that we're playing. Ideally, honestly, Kershaw gives up 2 solo home runs, one to Brosseau, one to Yandy Diaz, and then dominates the rest of the game. And Glasnow gets pulled early because the Dodgers stack up the bases. Muncy hits a bomb. Will Smith hits a bomb. Jock Peterson at the bottom of the order hits a bomb to kick him out of the game, and we're looking good. So that's what we're thinking on that lineup build. And then I had already built a lineup on FanDuel for you guys, but real quick, we'll just go ahead and build one more and then wrap this video up. So I'm looking to play contrarian plays in my MVP slot. Guys that are going to be low owned and guys that profile well. So my first time I went ahead and played Will Smith. This time we're going to play Jock Peterson. He's at the bottom of the order. He profiles well and he's going to be low owned. We're going to run it back with Yandy Diaz in that star slot. He profiled pretty well. And then we're going to want to throw in a couple star players. I don't think these star players are going to completely not show up. Corey Seager's been one of the hottest bats in the postseason, so we're going to throw him in there. Feel good about that. Then we want to play Mr. Max Muncy because of how he profiles overall. And then lastly, we could throw in... See, I had mentioned playing a G-Man Choi or an Austin Meadows when they get pinch hit later in the game. So I'm not against doing that just to be a little bit sneaky. I mean, these pitchers are probably going to do pretty well, and then they're going to go to the bullpen, and we're going to see some pitch hitting. So I wouldn't hate that. However, for this particular build, just to leave some salary on the table, we're just going to go ahead and throw in the leadoff hitter and Mike Brosseau, who does profile pretty well against Kershaw's stuff. Then we have 3,000 left on the table. I think we have a different lineup because we don't have Muncy or Seager in our MVP or our 1.5 slot. I'm going to want to play lineups with those guys up there, obviously, but I just want to show you guys how to build a contrarian lineup and how to differentiate. If Jock Peterson's the guy that hits a grand slam at the bottom of the order and you have him in your MVP slot, you're going to be looking real good. So that's the strategy. That's the breakdown of this Game 1 MLB World Series Showdown slate. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It's going to help me out a ton. Most importantly, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And go ahead and leave a comment of your favorite play. Who's the guy that's going to hit a home run? Who's the guy that's going to be the game changer? Who should we be playing in our MVP and our king spot, so to speak, on DraftKings? Let me know in the comment section. I'll be back to break down Game 2. I wish you all the best of luck tonight. Hit the subscribe button. Have a good one. And good luck.